In this video, we're going to explore how to use formulas to help us solve word problems. And to do that, we're going to employ a four-step sort of problem-solving approach. The problem we're going to focus on is this one here. Deborah has two jobs. She earns $5 an hour babysitting and $9 an hour working at a grocery store. If she works 13 hours babysitting and 23 hours at the grocery store this week, how much money will she earn? So the first step that we're going to do is what we call the understanding step, or in some cases this is a planning step. But we're going to understand. And the understanding step involves doing two things. The first thing we're going to do is we are going to look for information. What information do we have, and what information are we going to use? So let's do that part right now. The first thing I like to look for is the question. What exactly am I trying to find? And so in this case here, it says right here, how much money will she earn? Now I'm going to look for information that I need to use in order to do that, and I'll highlight that green. So I'm told that she has two jobs. That's not really important right now. She earns $5 an hour babysitting, and $9 an hour working at a grocery store. Now we're also told that she works 13 hours babysitting and she works 23 hours at the grocery store this week. So this is the information that we're probably going to end up needing to use. The second step in this process of understanding is to write what we call a concept equation. And a concept equation is really just about using words to link together these ideas that are in the question. And this is actually one of the more difficult parts of this. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to focus on our question. And so we're told, how the money earned. That's one part of our concept equation. Now the next part is, well, how do we find out how much money is earned? And to do that, we need to know how much she earns in each of her two jobs. So it's money babysitting plus money at the grocery store. Those are the two things that we need to add together in order to find out the total money earned. The second step in the process is what we call setting up the question. And we're going to do two different things for this. The first thing we're going to do is we are going to define variables. So for all of our quantities, all of the amounts that we have, we're going to define a variable for them. So let's do that part right now. All of our underlined pieces are things that we are going to define variables for. So I'm going to start with the question, the amount of money earned. And usually when defining variables, you pick a variable that's connected to the idea or whatever it is that it represents. So in this case, I'm going to call T equals the total money. And now I'm going to keep going through here. $5 an hour babysitting. So that's her wage. So I'm going to call that W is money per hour babysitting. I also have money per hour at the grocery store. Now I can't use W because I've already used that, so I'm just going to use something different. I'm going to call this one E for earnings equals money per hour at the grocery store. And there's really no right way to define variables, but it should have some sort of connection. I now have the amount of time spent babysitting. So I'll just call that one B equals hours babysitting. And lastly, I have the amount of time she spent at the grocery store. I'll call that G equals hours grocery. So I'm going to use all of these variables to help me create my formula. And that's really the next part of the setup, is writing a formula. And so here's where I'm going to combine the work that I did with my concept equation with the work that I did below here in order to come up with my formula. So I'll do that in orange. So here's a great way to do this. I'll use my concept equation and I'll use these variables below. So the amount of money earned, well, I've already defined that as my total, so that's T. That equals. Now to find the amount of money she made babysitting, I need to multiply together the amount of money made every hour babysitting by the number of hours she babysat. And the same thing, to find the total amount of money at the grocery store, I need to find the wage at the grocery store, or the E, times the amount of hours at the grocery store, which is G. The third part of this process now is really where we actually do sort of the calculation side of things. It's the solving type. And this is just sort of solving, or in some cases evaluating, depending on what our formula is. So the first thing we're going to do is we're actually now going to substitute in everything we know into our original formula. So I'm just going to rewrite that below. T equals WB plus EG. Now let's substitute in. Do I know the total amount? I don't, so I'm going to leave that as a T. T equals, and now W, the amount of money made per hour babysitting. Well, I'm told that's $5. The amount of hours babysitting I was told was 13, plus the wage at the grocery store, which is $9 an hour multiplied by 23. So now I'm going to continue working this out using order of operations. Since I'm now an order of operations expert, all I'm going to do is combine this. I have a multiplication step here and here. I can do those both at the same time. So I end up with 5 times 13, which is 65, plus 9 times 23, which is 207. And now I'll just add those together. 65 plus 207 is 272. My final step is to go back and actually answer the problem. And the reason why this is not the same thing as solving or evaluating is sometimes the answer is maybe something different. So go back and look at this question. How much money will she earn? And answer this with a sentence. You say, she will earn 272, and don't forget your units, dollars. I know this is a long process, but in the end it will actually be much more useful as the types of problems we get more complicated and the formulas get more complex. So this is our this is what we'll be using this year as our 4-step approach to working through word problems.